Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Aleph and we will be learning today Emir Hashem Daf Lamed Beis Amid Aleph. It's a very an occasion of note. We're going to be concluding Hilchos Tzitzis and beginning Hilchos Tefillin. So we begin today Lamed Aleph Amid Beis Siman Chav Daled, the final Siman in Hilchos Tzitzis, and we pick up with Sif Daled. Now, in Sif Daled and Sif Hey, we're going to really take a look at a very interesting Shiloh. In Sif Beis, the Mechaber told us, Mitzvah le'echais hatzitzitz biyad smolis. It's a mitzvah to hold the tzitzits in the left hand, keneged libay, next to one's heart, the upper chest towards the left, b'shas kriyishma, at the time of kriyishma, remez ledavar v'hayu ad-davarim ha'ela al levavecha. So in Sif Beis we saw in the Mechaber that there's an inyan to hold the tzitzits during kriyishma. Okay. The question is, which tzitzits? We know that there are people that are noyed to hold all four of the tzitzits by kriyishma. There are those who are noyed only to hold the front two. Which one is accurate? Well, let's take a look at the flow of the Mechaber here. Again, in Sif Beis, he tells us mitzvah lechais hatzitzitz. It's a mitzvah to hold the tzitzits, but he doesn't tell us which one. In Sif Gimel, he told us toiv lehistakel batzitzitz b'shas hatifa kishem bevarech. You should look at the tzitzits at the time that you make the bracha. Now let's see Sif Dalet. Sif Dalet, says the Mechaber, yesh noyagin, there are those who have the minig lehistakel batzitzitz, to look at the tzitzits, to gaze at the tzitzit strings, kishemagiem le'uriisem oisai. When they get to the words uriisem oisai uzachartem, they gaze at the tzitzit strings, v'litein oisam ala ha'inayim, and then to put them by the eyes, to put them over the eyes. So, for example, what I do is I'm holding my tzitzits between the pinky and the ring finger of the left hand, and I take them on my right hand. Uri'isam Isai, I look at them, and then after I say Uri'isam Isai, I put them over my eyes, which is what I saw Rav Moshe, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh L'Vracha do, and Yibad L'Chaim, what my Rebbe, Reb Reuven Feinstein Shlita does. So, you look at them by Uri'isam Isai, and then V'litein Isam Alohinayim, and then to place them over the eyes. And the Mechaber says, Uminig Yafehu, this is a nice minig, the chibuve mitzvah, and it's a minig of those who love mitzvahs. It's an engagement in the mitzvah of tzitzits. You see, you could be wearing a talis and you're just wearing a talis. You don't pay much attention to it. But the fact that you're holding the tzitzits, and when you get to Re'isa Maisa, you look at them, and you put them over your eyes, and you pay attention to them. So the Mechaber says this is a mitzvah of chibuve mitzvah, those who love mitzvahs. Says the Rambam Haggah, Gam noihagim ktsas, there are also some people who have the minig, lenashe katzitzitz, to kiss the tzitzits, b'shah sheroyabam, at the time that they look at them. Va'akarlu chibuv mitzvah. And this is all, again, showing love for the mitzvah. So, uri'isa maisai, you're looking at the tzitzits, then you put them over your eyes, so there are those who kiss the tzitzits as well. Okay, again, so far the Mechaber has still not told us which tzitzits, which one should you look at, which one should you put over your eyes, which one should you hold. Is it one corner, two corners, four corners? Doesn't say yet. So before we do any Mishnah Berurah, let's continue to Sif Hey. Says the Mechaber in Sif Hey, Kishem mistakel batzitzits, when you do look at the tzitzits, mistakel b'shtei tzitziyos shelefanov. The Mechaber says, I'm talking over here about looking at the tzitzit strings. Now I'm identifying which ones. Kishem mistakel batzitzits, when you look at the tzitzits, and by extension, when you hold them, when you kiss them, when you put them over your eyes, kishem mistakel batzitzits, mistakel b'shtei tzitziyos shelefanov. You look at the two tzitzis of the front. sheyesh b'hem asara kisharim. In those two tzitzis tassels, you have 10 sets of strings, not 10 knots. Each tassel has 5 sets of knots, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So each one has 5 sets of knots, and in the 5 sets, so you have 5 sets of knots. 2 tassels is 10 sets of knots. So look at the 2 front tassels, sheyesh b'hem asara kisharim, where you have 10 sets of knots. Remez lahavayas. That's a remez to the 10 havayas. What are the 10 havayas? So many of you are very aware of them now because it's the Yemei HaSfira. Indeed, I'm recording this on Lag BaOmer, so it's the Yemei HaSfira, and a lot of people have the minhag when they count Sfira, they say the Sfiros. What are the 10 Sfiros? Keser, Chachma, Bina, Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hoid, Yesod, and Malchus. Those are the 10 Sfiros. So says the Mechaber, when you look at the tzitzit tassels, you should look at the 2 front tzitzit tassels, where you have 10 sets of knots that are connected to 10 Sfiros. The Gam, and furthermore, Yesh b'hem shisha asar chutim. The 2 tzitzit tassels combine for 16 strings, v'asara kisharim, and 10 sets of knots, Oila esrim v'shisha, 10 plus 16 is 26, kishem havaya, which is the gematria of the shem havaya. So here we see l'chayra in the Mechaber. This whole discussion of the Mechaber that begins with Sif Beis, when the Mechaber says that it's a mitzvah to hold the tzitzit tassels by Kriya Shema, and then Sif Gimel, where he says that you should look at the tzitzits when you make the bracha, and then Sif Dalid, where he says that you should look at the tzitzits by your Re'isam Isai, and you should put them over your eyes. Now finally in Sif Hey says the Mechaber, which tzitzits are we talking about? We're talking about the 2 front tzitzit tassels. Now, let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah before we talk about this further. So we're up to Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Zayin. Says the Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Zayin, Al Ha'inayim, you should take the tzitzit strings and put them over your eyes. Nimtza b'shem HaKadmonim, it's brought down in the name of the Kadmonim, and this is brought down by the Beis Yosef. Shekal HaMavir tzitzits al Einov, whoever puts the tzitzits over his eyes, Kishekare Parshas Tzitzis, when he says the Parsha of Tzitzis in Kriya Shema, Yehe Muvtach, he will be assured, Shalo Yavar Lidei Simoy Einayim, that he will not come Chas v'Chalila to blindness. If you have, we see already the tremendous power of the mitzvah of Tzitzis. The mitzvah of Tzitzis, we said, has a special skula, it has a special kayach to protect you from Averis. Other mitzvahs don't necessarily have that kayach, but the mitzvah of Tzitzis does, because it says so in the Torah. Laman tizkeru v'asisem es kol mitzvah v'yisem kedoshim u're'isem oisoyu zachartem, right? And l'veloy sasuru acharei levavechem v'acharei einechem. You will not be drawn astray after your eyes and after your hearts. This is particularly important nowadays, Rabbi Say, where the challenge of Shmiras Einayim is such a tremendous challenge. Tremendous challenge nowadays, Shmiras Einayim. And it's not just a challenge because of technology, right? When you start talking about Shmiras Einayim nowadays, everybody says, oh, you're about to preach about technology. It's not just technology. It's everywhere you go. I say nowadays, it's a big shaila whether or not you're allowed to go to the mall. You go to the mall and the window displays that you're exposed to, the advertisements that you're exposed to. You go in the street, what you're exposed to. You go check out by the supermarket aisle, what you're exposed to. There's tremendous challenges nowadays of Shmiras Einayim. So we have a mitzvah of tzitzis that the Rabbeinu Shalom gave us. And the Rabbeinu Shalom said, when we look at those tzitzit strings, and we remember the Shem Havaya, and we remember the Asara Sfiros, and we remember Chamisha Chumshei Torah, when we see that on each one of the tzitzit tassels there's 5 sets of knots, Uri'isam Oisoyu, Uzachartem, V'loisa Suru Acharei Levavechem V'acharei Einechem. The Rabbeinu Shalom gave us an aid. The Rabbeinu Shalom gave us an antibiotic. It's like, I like, Chazal say, I always like to quote it, Barasi Yetzer Hara, I created a Yetzer Hara, but Barasi Torah Tavlin. I also created a Torah as an antidote to the Yetzer Hara. So the Rebbeinu Shalom created all of these nisyonos. The Rebbeinu Shalom knows where he put us. The Rebbeinu Shalom knows the mores of the time and the locale that he put us in. But the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us the medication. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave us Torah. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave us tzitzis. So to have chibuv, to have chavivus for the mitzvah of tzitzis, and to pay attention to the mitzvah of tzitzis. Look at those tzitzis. Pay attention to those tzitzis. Put them over your eyes. They have a protection for ruchnius, and now we see here that they have a protection for gashmius too. If you put them over your eyes, you won't come to Siman Einayim. Doesn't mean if you put it over your eyes without any machshava. It doesn't mean that if you walk around with a tzitzis tassel in your pocket as a skula, and you go like this, you're not going to come to Siman Einayim. It means that if you have chavivus hamitzvah, Rabbi say, I remember very well watching Rav Moshe Zecher Tzadik Levracha, watching him kiss his tzitzis. You know, most people, I shouldn't say it, not being karatagar chas v'chalila people. A lot of people kiss their tzitzis. You know, the emes. The Rishir Zatzal kissed his tzitzis. It was a kiss. I saw him kiss his tzitzis. I saw him kiss his einaklach. I don't think there was a difference in the way he kissed his tzitzis and the way he kissed his einaklach. I remember the sound, you know. It was a kiss. It was a geschmacke kiss. So you kiss the tzitzis, the chavivus, for the mitzvah. Hasuma. Let's continue Mishnah Berurah's cut in Zion. Hasuma, a blind individual. Yesh lo lechais hatzitzis b'yodai b'shas kriyishma. He should hold his tzitzis like everybody else does when he says Kriya Shema. Afal pisha nemar ureisa moisai, even though he's going to say the pasuk of ureisa moisai and he can't see them, kevet sheyeshtoi bereia eitzel acherim, because it's not that the tzitzis strings are invisible. So there's nothing wrong with saying ureisa moisai while you're holding the tzitzis, even though he's blind, because they're not invisible. Other people could see them. Aval, however, he should not pass the tzitzis over his eyes, because it looks like he's making fun. Everybody knows he's blind, and he's going like this with his tzitzis when he can't see. That already looks like he's making fun. So that, the Mishnah Berurah says, you should not do. Ice cut neches, because we already did sif hay. So the Mishnah Berurah said that the 10 sets of knots that are in the front two tzitzit tassels are a remez to the 10 spheros. Now, the first thing I want to tell you is, people associate the asara spheros with spheras ha'omer. Now, spheras ha'omer means counting the omer. So, asara spheros sounds like the 10 countings. The asara spheros that we just read off here, of Keser, Chochma, Bina, Chesed, Gvura, Teferes, Netzach, Hoyd, Yisoid, Malchus, they have nothing to do with counting. The word Sphira over here comes from Livnas Hasapir. We know that by Har Sinai, when they came to Har Sinai, it says that they saw Tachas Nekise HaKavod, Livnas Hasapir, like a brick of sapphire. That's what the Spheros, the word Spheros, when we speak about the Asara Spheros, comes from that. Now, as far as exactly what the Asara Spheros are, I mean, I listed them, right? Keser, Chachma, Bina, Chesed, Gvur, Teferes, Netzach, Hoyd, Yisoid, Malchus. Exactly what that means is above my pay grade. But somehow the way they are described is these are 10 different ways that the Shechina manifests itself in this world. So the Mechaber told us over here that when we look at the two tzitzits, the two front tzitzits, and we see the 10 sets of knots, that should remind us of the Asara, what he called the Havayos, what we know as the Asara Spheros. And in Mishnah Berurah, Eiskat and Ches, the Chavetz Chaim says, Pirish, La Spheros, this is a reference to the Spheros, Shehem Kishurim Va'achudim Zeh Bazeh. Why is it that we have 10 sets of knots that remind us of the Asara Spheros? The reason for that is because chas v'chalila, no one should ever make a mistake. When we say that there are asara sfiros, and this is somehow 10 different ways that the Shechina either manifests itself or connects to us in this world, there's only one Rabbeinu Shalom. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. There's no Shtei Reshuyos Chas v'Chalila or more. So these Asar Sfiros, says the Chavetz Chaim, Heim Kishurim va'achudim zeh bazeh. They're tied together and united because Hashem Echad, the Rabbeinu Shalom, is only one. So we look at the tzitzits, the front tzitzits. We see the 10 sets of knots. That's a remez to the Asar Sfiros. And then the Mishnah Berurah said that the 16 strings together with the 10 knots, that gives us a total of 26. And that reminds us of the Shem Havaya. Now, I said over here that it's pretty clear, it seems pretty clear, from the flow of the Mechaber from Sif Beis through Sif Hey, that the tzitzis we're supposed to hold, and the tzitzis, certainly the tzitzis we're supposed to look at during Kriya Shema are the front 2 sets of tzitzis, not all 4. Now, there are those who disagree. There are those who say that you should hold all 4. Now, very, very interesting. Many years ago, I was watching my Rebbe, Reuven Feinstein, Zalzang Gesund Stark, and I saw that by Kriya Shema, he only holds the front 2 tzitzits. Now, I remember very clearly watching Rav Moshe, Zechet Tzadik Levracha, and Rav Moshe held all 4. So I went to Rav Reuven and I asked him, I said, Rebbe, why is it that you only hold the front 2 tzitzits by Kriya Shema? So he told me, what do you mean? Learn the Mechaber. Mechaber is Siman Chav Daled. It comes out that you only hold the front 2. So I said, yeah, but my question is because the Rebbe's father, Rav Moshe Zechet Tzadik Levracha, held all 4. So he said, I'll tell you an interesting story. He told me that the Rishir Zatzal used to hold only the front 2 tzitzits. And then what happened was, and oh wait, I should go step back a second. Rabbi Reuven told me that he had the same question. It bothered him. Why does his father hold all 4? And it seems that he never had a chance to ask his father. He asked the Mashgiach of MTJ, Zechron Levracha, Rav Michal Birnbaum, a Gayan, a Tzaddik Bal Musar. He was the Mashgiach in MTJ under Rav Moshe for decades. So Rav Reuven asked the Mashgiach Zatzal. He said, do you know why my father held all 4 tzitzits? And the Mashgiach said, yes, I do know. He used to hold only 2. And then one day, an interesting thing happened. There was a Pashut Yid who came to daven in MTJ and to see Rav Moshe. And he saw that by Kriya Shema, the Rishir Zatzal only held the front 2 tzitzis. So he went over to Rav Moshe with the siddur. In a lot of old siddurim, in middle of Ava Rabbah, or in Nusach Sfarad, Ava Solam, there's a line where we say, Me arba kanfais haaretz. We asked the Rebbeinu Shalom to gather in the Golus, and we asked him he should bring us in Me arba kanfais haaretz, from the 4 corners of the world. And in many old prints, it says over there in the siddur that over here you should take the 4 tzitzits of the talis. It says, matter of fact, I might have a siddur here that even says it. I think this siddur, let me see. Mahar v'havi alei bracha v'shalom me'arba kanfos kol haaretz. This siddur Taki doesn't say it, but in a lot of the old siddurim it says that over here you should take all 4 tzitzits in your hand. Now, what's the source for the siddur? Where did the siddur get that from? I don't know, but it said it in the siddur. So this Pashut Yid went over to Rav Moshe and said, look, it says over here you're supposed to take all 4 tzitzits, and you're only taking 2. So Rav Moshe looked, and he said, oh, thank you very much for pointing it out. And from then on, he took all 4. So the Mashgiach asked him, just because a Pashut Yid, who's really an Amoritz, came in and pointed something out to you from the siddur out of Amaratzos, so now you take all 4? So Rav Moshe said yes. If a Pashut Yid is going to walk in and look at me and say that I don't know what I'm doing because it's Pashut in the siddur that you're supposed to take all 4 tzitzis and I only take 2, how are they going to listen to me when I paskin a shvera shayla? He doesn't trust me. He's going to hear that I gave out a psak, a complicated psak in Hilchos Shabbos or something else, and he's going to say, I was there in MTJ, you didn't even know the halacha that you're supposed to hold all 4 tzitzis. He only holds 2. So from then on, Rav Moshe held all 4. But really, he held that there's no reason to hold all 4. It's really only the front 2. Okay, now we go Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, top line Sivov. Says the Mechaber, Gadol Einish Hamavatal Mitzvahs Tzitzis. The Einish, the punishment for one who is Mevatal, the mitzvah of Tzitzis, is very severe. Va'alav Nemar, and on him the Pasuk says in Iyov, Lechais bekanfais haaretz. The Gomer. What does the pasuk say in Iyov? The pasuk in Iyov, I have it over here. The pasuk in Iyov says, Gimel. The Rabbeinu Shalom was speaking to Iyov, and the Rabbeinu Shalom said to Iyov, it's the right pasuk. Here. Hamiyamecha tzivisa boiker? Did you ever command the morning? In other words, the Rebbeinu Shalom is speaking to Iyov, and he's telling Iyov, you want to understand the rationales and the processes for everything that I do in the world? Do you have the proper level of understanding? Can you even comprehend the ways of the Rebbeinu Shalom? Hamiyamecha tzivisa boiker? Did you ever command the morning? Yidata hashachar mekaimari? Did you ever teach the arising of the dawn its proper place in the heavens? Lechais bekanfais haaretz. This is the pasuk we're bringing down here. Lechais bekanfais haaretz. Did you ever grab hold of the corners of the world? V'yinaru rishayim mimena? So that you could shake the Rishayim out of the world? The Rebbeinu Shalom is trying to tell Iyov, you got to know your place. You want to come and ask questions about the way I do things. Realize the tremendous merachak, the tremendous divide between the Rebbeinu Shalom and a mere mortal. Can you really understand anything? I mean, you have no concept of these things. But one of the things the Rebbeinu Shalom said, which he's telling Iyov, this is something that I could do, and that I could comprehend that you cannot, is lechais bekanfais haaretz, to grab hold of the corners of the world, v'yinaru rishayim mimena, to shake the rishayim out of the world. That's the pasuk that the Mechaber is referencing here as a remez to the einish of somebody who's mevatel the mitzvah of tzitzis. Lechais bekanfais haaretz v'yinaru rishayim mimenu. The Rebbeinu Shalom will grab hold of the corners. This is like a midah keneged midah. If chas v'shalom somebody is mevatel the mitzvah saseh of arba kanfos, then the Rebbeinu Shalom will grab the kanfos of the world and shake this Russia out of the world. And the opposite says the Mechaber, hazoyer b'mitzvahs tzitzis, somebody who takes care and he carefully is mekayim the mitzvah of tzitzis, zoiche v'roya p'nei shchina, he will merit to see the Shechina HaKadoshah. Says the Mishnah Berurah Cotton Test, Hazar b'mitzvah tzitzis. Says the Chavetz Chaim, mitzvah lasois talis na. There's a mitzvah to have a beautiful talis. V'tzitzits na, and beautiful tzitzits. Beautiful tzitzit strings, beautiful talis katan. V'hu adin kala mitzvahs. Really, the same halacha applies to all mitzvahs. Tzarech la'asaisan behidur. You have to do them with beauty, b'chal ma'ad efsher, as much as possible. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Zeh keli v'anvehu. Klal Yisrael said by the Shira al Hayam, Zeh keli, this is my Rebbeinu Shalom v'anvehu, and I will beautify him. What does that mean? How do you beautify the Rebbeinu Shalom? Hisnaya lefanav b'mitzvahs. I will beautify the mitzvahs. When I go to be b'kayim the mitzvahs, I'll beautify the mitzvahs. So talis katan, that's hiding under your shirt, Somebody might think, it doesn't matter what it looks like. No, you should have a beautiful talis cotton with beautiful mahuder dika talis strings. And the talis that you wear in shul should be a beautiful talis. You wear a beautiful suit, wear a beautiful talis. It's not a fun of the mitzvahs. Aval, however, says the Chavetz Chaim, very interesting halacha, Asur lirkaim psukim shel Torah batalis. You're not allowed to embroider psukim on a talis. Somebody would think maybe it's a nice thing to do on the HaTorah of the talis. Maybe I should have embroidered Gedilum tasal chalaba kanfes ksusacha shetachaseba. Says the Mishnah Berurah, no, it's asur to embroider psukim on the talis. Why is this? So really, we have two reasons that are brought down. There's a famous Shitas Rambam that you're not allowed to write a pasuk. Just stamazoi, to write a pasuk down on a piece of paper, the Rambam held is asur. If you're writing a sefer, Torah, fine. You're writing one of the Sifrei HaNeviim, fine. You want to write a Megillah, fine. But just to take a pasuk from the Torah and write it down, the Rambam held was asur. So to embroider a pasuk on a talis would be asur. That's one reason. Another reason, and this is something that we've seen before that the Chavetz Chaim is very makpid on, is that whenever we write down a pasuk or put a pasuk down on something, we have to worry about the possibility that it will bali de bizayon. So, for example, we learned in Hilchos Sukkah that the Chavetz Chaim is not happy with the idea of putting psukim on noi sukkah. You're going to take a paper, a picture, you're going to put a pasuk on it, and you're going to hang it up in the sukkah. It's going to get rained on, it's going to get ruined, you're going to want to throw it in the garbage. Or it's going to fall on the floor. It's going to be mutal bibizayon. So we never want to put a pasuk on something and risk that it's going to end up being mutal bibizayon. That's why Rav Moshe was not necessarily happy with the minig that people have to write Baruch Hashem on the top of a paper. He said, it's one thing if you're writing Divrei Torah. But if you're not writing Divrei Torah, there are some people, every paper that they take out, Baruch Hashem. Be'ezras Hashem Yisparach. B'siyata Dishmayim. The Rishiva, that's how you say, depends what you're putting on the paper. What is it, a shopping list? What are you going to do with the shopping list afterwards? You're going to throw it in the garbage. Now, someone will say, it's not Sheamus, it's not 3 words for the Torah in a row. Doesn't matter, you wrote Baruch Hashem. What did you mean? You mean the Rebbeinu Shalom. Baruch Hashem. B'siyata D'Shmaya. What does Shmaya mean? Shmaya is a reference to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Now you're going to take it, you're going to throw it in the garbage. So too over here, a second reason why we don't embroider psukim in the talis is what's the future of this talis? Who knows? We learned earlier that a talis without the tzitzit strings, technically, you're allowed to throw it out. So you're going to embroider psukim on the beged of a talis. Eventually, the talis is going to wear out. What's going to become of it? So therefore, it says the Mishnah Berurah, asur. It's forbidden. It's prohibited. Lirkaim psukim shel Torah batalis. Continues the Mishnah Berurah, and he says, nevertheless, in kvar nirkam, if there already are psukim embroidered on it, mutar levarach alav, it's still a beged that's chayv tzitzis. You're allowed to make a bracha on it. Now, interesting halacha, va'af al mapos, even on a Sefer Torah mantle, the cover for a Sefer Torah, that's what the Mishnah Berurah means there by mapos. Ein moirin heter lechatchila. Lechatchila, we don't give a psak to be matir lirkaim divrei Torah alav. Now, what's the afilu? He says over here, va'af al mapos, even on the Sefer Torah mantle, we don't give a heter lechatchila. So by the talis, the Mishnah Berurah said it's asur. You're not allowed to embroider psukim on a talis. By the mantle of the Sefer Torah, the Chavetz Chaim softens it. He says lechatchila, we don't give a psak that it's mutter. Why? I think the reason is because we said 2 reasons for the talis. But 1 reason for the Sefer Torah mantle doesn't apply. By the Sefer Torah mantle, we're not afraid that it's going to be mutal b'bezayin. Because the mantle of the Sefer Torah, that needs geniza, I believe. We'll see those halachas later. But that you cannot throw out. So we don't have to worry that it's going to be mutal b'bezayin. So the only reason to answer it would be the Shitas Rambam. The Shitas Rambam that we don't write down a pasuk. But we don't paskin like the Rambam. So yes, it's a Rambam. But for that reason alone, we're not going to say that it's asur, because we don't paskin like the Rambam. So if we don't paskin like the Rambam, why not give a heter lechatchila? The problem of mutal b'bezayin doesn't apply. The Rambam we don't paskin like, so why can't we give a heter lechatchila to put psukim on the Sefer Torah mantle? Because the truth is that while we don't paskin like the Rambam, usually we say we don't paskin like that Rambam, and we allow you to write down psukim kedei lehislamid. You could write down psukim because you're writing it for HaTorah. You could write down psukim because you're writing a vart on Chumash. But stam to write down a pasuk, we're choishish for the Rambam. So why are we putting it on a Sefer Torah mantle? On a Sefer Torah mantle, there's enough things you could write on the Sefer Torah mantle. You don't have to write a pasuk. Okay, and with this, we conclude the beautiful limud of Hilchos Tzitzis. Now, I cannot leave Hilchos Tzitzis without once again giving an impassioned plea to the tzibur not to be kal in the mitzvah of tzitzis. Wear that talis cotton. Wear it even when you think you have a tzad heter not to wear it. I see people in the bungalow colonies, they want to go to the pool, they go and they change in the bungalow, they put on a robe, they leave the talis tzitzis home. Why? You're going Daled Amos. What's the problem with wearing the talis cotton? Take the talis cotton with you. You'll hang it up by the pool. The same way you hang up your robe by the pool. You'll hang up the talis cotton by the pool. What's the problem? People are working. They said, well, I don't want to get the talis cotton sweated up. It's okay. Get the talis cotton sweated up. How many shirts do you have in your closet? So you have to have only 2 talis cottons? If you can have 10 shirts, you can have 10 talis cottons. So if it gets sweated up, you'll wash it. But wear that talis cotton. Be nizar in the midst of talis cotton. Do you need any better encouragement than the last words of the Mechaber over here? Hazar b'mitzvah tzitzis zoicha v'roya p'nei shchina. And it gives you that protection from Averis. So we have to be nizar in the mitzvah of tzitzis. And now we begin Hilchos Tefillin. Siman Chafei, Dinei Tefillin Bepratus, the detailed halachas of Tefillin, Uba Yud Gimel Seifim, and here we have 13 Seifim. And Hilchos Tefillin is going to take us from here through, I believe, Siman Mem Daled, all the way through Mem Hey. Through Siman Mem Hey. So it's a nice limud, Hilchos Tefillin, with a lot of details. Okay, says the Mechaber Sif Aleph. Achar shalavash talis mitzuyatz. You come to shul, you put on your talis. After you put on a talis with tzitzits, yoniach tefillin. Then you put on the tefillin. Why in that order? Shemalin b'kodesh, because we go up in kedusha, and the tefillin are a hechera kedusha than the tzitzis, than the talis. Okay, let's take a look here first at the Mishnah Berurah, then we'll see a biur halacha. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Kan Aleph Achar Shalavash, Va'afilu im hatalis eino chayiv ela mid'Rabbanan. This is true even if the only talis that you have is one that's only chayiv mid'Rabbanan. What would be a case of a talis that doesn't have a chayiv daraisa? It's a 4-cornered garment. What case do we have where we have a 4-cornered talis that only has a chayiv darabanan, not daraisa? So I'll remind you, or the Chavetz Chaim will remind you. Kegoin, for example, says the Chavetz Chaim, she'ula, if you have a borrowed talis, achar shloishim yom, that you already have for 30 days. We learned that after 30 days, you have to make a bracha on a talis she'ula because of marasayin. It looks like it belongs to you. You're wearing it already for 30 days, and you're wearing it without tzitzits. So it looks like you don't believe in the mitzvah of tzitzits, chas v'chalila. So a talis she'ula after shloishim yom is chayiv mid'Rabbanan. V'chanal b'simin yudal siv gimel. V'chol kai gavna. Or any other kind of talis that's only chayiv mid'Rabbanan. Gam ken yesh lahagdimai l'tfilin. Still, you put it on before you put on the tefillin. Ois kat beis yaniach tefillin. Says the Chavetz Chaim. Umi she'ein yodai maseges liknois tzitzis u'tefillin. Let's say somebody doesn't have the necessary funds to be able to buy a talis and tefillin. The Achrayim reached the conclusion that tefillin koidmin. That in that case, tefillin come first. Why? Very simple. Ki tzitzitzu rak mitzvah im yesh loy talis shel arba kanfos. The bottom line is you're not really chayiv. Remember what we said. We said that the mitzvah of tzitzis is not a mitzvah on the gavra. It's not a mitzvah on the mana, it's a mitzvah on the gavra. But what we said is, there's no mitzvah gufnius, there's no mitzvah on the person to make sure that he has a beged of dal kanfos so that he should be chayiv in the mitzvah of tzitzis. Technically, the mitzvah of tzitzis is only if you have a beged of dal kanfos, you have to put tzitzis on it. But there's no mitzvah chiyuvis to go get a beged of Dalet Kanfas. We are nizar that we don't go Dalet Amos without tzitzits. We go the extra mile to be mechayev ourselves in tzitzits. But technically you don't have to do that. So therefore, if you don't have the funds to get a talis and tefillin come first. Because tefillin is a chiyuv. You have to put on tefillin every day. Ki tzitzits are rak mitzvah yeshu tal shal kanfas. Tefillin hu chayva. But tefillin is a real chiyuv. You must put on tefillin. And if somebody doesn't put on tefillin, chas v'chalila, hu b'chlal Paishe Yisrael begufan. The Chazal call him Paishe Yisrael begufan. Somebody who does averis with his guf. Terrible thing. Karkafta shaloi lavash tefillin, a carcass that didn't put on tefillin. Ukelakaman b'siman lamed zayin. The choshke le'inyan liktais tefillin muhudarin v'talis na. Certainly, if you have a choice between buying beautiful tefillin or beautiful talis, the tefillin kaidmin l'chulei alma. Certainly, you have to pay attention to the tefillin first. The Chavetz Chaim said that the Welt is not careful with this. They stumble over this and they pay more attention to the talis than the tefillin. I think one of the reasons is because by a talis, it's very easy for a stam person to discern whether a talis is beautiful or not. It's a fabric. So you go to Eichler's and you pick out the most beautiful looking talis. It's something that they can understand. The hidurim in tefillin, unless somebody learned Hilchos Tefillin, he doesn't appreciate the hidurim. And the parshas, he never even sees them very often. So he's not margish the beauty of the tefillin. He's margish the beauty of the talis. But the Chavetz Chaim says the beautiful tefillin come first. Mi she'ein yodem haseges liknos tzitzis tefillin. Somebody does not have the necessary funds to purchase talis and tefillin. Ein mechuyev lachzar al psachim k'dei liknoisan. He's not mechuyev to go beg in order to buy them. Aval mi she'yodem haseges. However, if somebody does have the funds necessary to buy talis and tefillin, but he doesn't want to spend the money. So instead of spending the money, every day he comes to shul, he waits for somebody to finish davening, and he says, "Can I borrow your tefillin?" Because of a Bach, the Anshay Gadol. The Bach writes that the einish for this person will chas v'chalila be a very, very significant einish. Okay, we're going to stop over here because if we continue, we're going into a whole new topic. So we'll stop over here and continue next time in Yirtza Hashem. Thank you so much for joining me for Libin HaTorah. This was Libin HaTorah should be banging against Klal Yisrael. The Rebbe should send you shows the first parnasa shetuchim to all those in need. We should be zeichet to see the BS called Tzedek. B'meherev Yameinu Amen. Be well.